What's up, YouTube? I'm DJ Tims, here with Tim's Nation to talk to you about one of my favorite units in the Necron Codex, Canoptic Scarabs. If you haven't subscribed to this channel already, please do. It helps me get closer to a point where I can do this more frequently and talk about more units in not just Necrons. Grey Knights, Admech, I just recently started Orcs, and soon to come World Eaters. Over this whole entire edition, Necrons have been one of my staples, and after the Triple C GT, there was a couple people who asked me some of my opinions on different units, and it was very nice to hear. I really greatly appreciate it. It was nice to know that my opinion mattered to some of these people for this army on how to play them better, play them competitively, and make them good on the table. But unfortunately, after a 5-round GT, your brain kind of goes to mush, and it's hard to really give why these units are good. It's easy to say, oh, you should run more of these or should run that, but why? So I figured this is a great opportunity to make a video for my channel and talk about one of my favorite units in the Necron book, the Canoptic Scarabs. So for starters, what is a Canoptic Scarab? Well, Canoptic Scarabs are 15-point models, fast attack, that can come in units of 3 to 9. Their movement is a 10, with a weapon skill of 4, no ballistic skill, strength and toughness of 3, 4 wounds, 4 attacks, and a leadership 10. They have a 6-up save. Their only weapon is the Feeder Mandible, which is a melee weapon that is a strength user, so strength 3. AP 0, 1 damage. It has the unique ability that each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds the target. They have Living Metal, Reanimation, and Command Protocol special rules, so they can heal as well as reanimate guys on the fly. They have the Necron Dynasty keywords. They will be getting all your nice dynastic buffs, such as Relentless Expansionists and Eternal Conquerors, the most popular custom dynasty right now competitive. And they have Swarm, Fly, Canoptic, and the Canoptic Scarab keyword. Note they do not have core. This is one of the few Necron units that did not get core buffed. I don't think they need it, but if they got it, it would be pretty brutal to see some stuff, especially around the Silent King with all his rerolls. Some of the character support they do have access to is the Failsafe Overcharge, which is a Cryptek Arcanium that gives them that the Cryptek within 9 inches can target one unit in the command phase, one Canoptic unit, and give them +1 attack. If it is a vehicle or monster, it would give them plus D3. The Technomancers have access to a special item, upgrade, however you want to call it, that gives a 6-inch aura for +1 to hit. If you make him the Thrall of the Silent King, you can boost that up to 9 inches, giving your Scarabs a little more accuracy on their attacks. You also could take a Chronomancer to target one of those units of Scarabs and give them a 5-up invulnerable save, as well as rerolling failed charges. Having a unit of 36 wounds on a 5-up invuln that can also reanimate can get quite obnoxious. Now remember again, these guys do not have core, so they do not have access to the Veil of Darkness, so they cannot teleport around the field like that. With a 10-inch move and potentially a free redeploy though, shouldn't be that much of a negative side effect. One unit that is not a character that does provide great support for these guys that I want to bring up is the Canoptic Spider. One of the most important ability on the Canoptic Spider, as far as the Scarabs are concerned, is the ability to put Scarabs back. It's called Scarab Hive. And a part that a lot of people miss is it says, in your command phase, one destroyed model from each friendly Dynasty Canoptic Scarab Swarm unit within 6 inches of this ability is reanimated. This means that if one spider is within range of 3 separate Scarab units, let's say 9-mans, and each one of those lost one guy, that one spider could put a Scarab base back into each one of those 9-mans a turn. So if you have big bricks of Scarabs, it really is nice to have just one spider floating around behind a wall within 6 inches, being able to put Scarabs back at the beginning of your command phase. This can be used to move Scarabs out there further and get closer to the enemy, or maybe steal an objective that you were not initially in range of at the beginning of your command phase. Since remember, primaries are scored at the end of your command phase, and the spider puts them back during. So you can stack those to be able to score primary at the end of the turn on an objective that you weren't initially on. Now that we've gone over what a Scarab is, let's talk about some of their strengths. We're going to assume that you're taking the custom dynasty, that you have objective secured and the free move for the game. It's one of the best, and it's one where the Scarabs shine the most. First of all, they're 4-wound models. This means that all the 3 damage weapons, such as Thunder Hammers out there in the game, are going to require 2 hits instead of 1 to take down a base. That is something that the 3-wound damage wielders are not going to be very happy to see, as they're hoping to clear guy for guy, attack for attack, hit and wound for hit and wound. Whether they might be -1 to hit, or maybe not have all the strength. I mean, most of those are going to come in at strength 8 or better to be able to wound you on a 2, but they still would rather not have it soak up 2 attacks instead of just 1. Because if the squad does not get killed, that means you get to roll reanimation on every model that was hurt. They have the fly keyword, so they're going to be able to get around terrain, through units. They're very, very, very mobile. They have access to a 1 CP strat called Self-Destruct, which you use at the end of your charge step and select one of your Scarab units. Roll a dice. On a 2 through 5, they deal D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, they do flat 3, and then a Scarab model is removed. This does mean that if you roll a 1, and I know for a fact you will, because I've rolled so many 1s with this strat, a 1, nothing happens, but you still lose the base. And you do not get reanimation off that because the base was not removed as the result of a shooting or melee attack. Their fast board coverage. You can cover the board very early, very quickly, and be able to make it that your opponent doesn't have any zones to teleport, deep strike, or just get on you early in the game. They have a very, very wide footprint, with that 40mm base being 2 inches away from each model. Even with the 9-man, you can still cover a good portion and prevent someone from being able to get within 9 inches of you in that. The volume of attacks is tremendous. 4 attacks apiece with 6's auto wounding. Even into 2-up armor, they're going to roll 1s. You're going to do some damage. You're going to be able to remove some guys. 3 models going down usually equals 1 resed. So it's not impossible to reanimate these 4-wound models. Typically the numbers, when you lose 3, you get 1. So as long as your opponent's not clearing that entire squad in one fell swoop or picking them off 1 by 1, then you can get some guys back pretty easily. The leadership 10 is huge. You will probably never fail leadership with these guys, because if they do enough damage to put you at leadership, they're probably wiping out the squad. Otherwise, leadership 10, that's going to be tough to fail. 4 guys alone, you got to take out half the squad or more just to even potentially fail leadership, and that's assuming none of them reanimate, because if they do reanimate, you do not suffer that negative modifier to your morale because the model is back there. You only suffer the negative for the models that died and did not reanimate. Spider is also a huge, huge buff for this unit to be able to res models, putting them on objectives, like I said before, that you did not initially have at the turn, as well as just continuing to build squads up back to their starting strength that might have gotten hit earlier on, which is one of the tactics I like to use with 2 8-mans, which I'll cover a little bit. Now that we've covered what they're good at, let's talk about some of the things that they're not as good with, some of their weaknesses. Well, like I said before, if you kill 1 or 2 of them, it's really tough to reanimate them. You have to roll 4 dice per guy, and you need 4 of those to be a 5 or 6 to bring one of them back. Usually 1 or 2 means that none of them are coming back unless you spike the dice and just are having a good time, and it's a smile. It's a feel-good moment for you, not so much for your opponent. The power of the weapons in the game right now is really at an all-time high. A lot of these Scarab units do have units that are threatening them in almost every army that could clear a squad in 1 hit. just enough volume of shots, volume of attacks, whatever it may be. There's not a lot that they're hiding defensively. They have a 6-up save. Maybe they can get cover if you're not one of the 100 abilities that ignore it. You got that 5-up invuln, which will help reduce some of the damage. But needless to say, there is still a lot of heavy, hard-hitting damage that can clear the Scarabs very, very quickly. No AP on their attacks means a 2-up save is a 2-up save. It's going to be a 2-up all the way through. And with the Strength 3 going into anything that's a T4 or better, you're going to be on the bad side of the dice with the 5s or even just 6s that you're going to need to even do wounds. The 6s to auto wound help, but again, with no AP, that means that 2-up is going to remain a 2-up. 4-up weapon skill means 50% of the time you're going to miss. So even with the sheer bulk of attacks at having 36 attacks for a 9-man unit, half of those are going to go away. And then you're going into your 5s or 6s to wound, means it's not going to put that much onto big chunky units. Still be a good bucket of dice, still enough to push through 2 or 3 wounds onto something that you might have wanted to finish off, a character that's annoying you or a lone model in a unit. They're still there to do it, but if you try and hit something big like a squad of Custodi Guard, they're just going to run into them, bounce off them, and get slaughtered one by one by one. They're not core, which means they get less buffs. No rerolls, no reroll to wounds, no reroll to hit, no Veil of Darkness, and the list goes on of buffs that target specifically core in the Necron army that do not target these guys. They're also a very, 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 very big chunk of the no prisoner points. These guys are 36 wounds per 9-man unit. So if you take 3 9-mans, you're looking at 108 wounds for no prisoners. Those who don't know, no prisoners is a secondary for matched play that says you score 1 point per 10 wounds that you've killed. So with 108 wounds in the unit, that means that you're breaking both of the bonus point tiers, one for 50, one for 100, scoring 12 points just by killing the Scarabs alone. Nothing else. Kill 2 Necron warriors or 2 immortals, and you're at 13 points right there. This can be pretty brutal when going into that knowing that your opponent's going to take no prisoners and score 15 with very little effort. It's hard to not give out max with Necrons in general, because in some way, shape, or form, you're going to have things that reanimate. So you can kind of just ignore the fact and go, well, I'm giving up no prisoner points, so what? Take your 9-mans, do what you want to do, use them as you want to use them, but it's something to keep in mind that if you want to try to reduce how much your opponent's going to score off of no prisoner points. So now we've covered all the things that Necron Canoptic Scarabs are good at. In some ways they're bad. Here's different ways that you can run them and ways that I've seen people run them and work pretty efficiently. There are 3 general styles I'm going to talk about. 3x3, 9x3, and 2x8. So 3x3 means 3 3-man Scarab Squats. These are not going to be units that are going to kill a lot of things. They're not going to win you the game by tabling your opponent. What they are going to do is be a 45-point unit that can swing up early and score points on Treasure of Aeons, score primary points, and just harass your opponents as a 12-wound unit that only costs you 45 points. Some armies in the game, like Death Guard, are looking at a single model with 3 wounds that costs up around 45 points. So this is a really nice, fast, early hit that can land on the objective and hold it for you early. If you're looking to invest points into your destroyers and to have more damage dealers such as that, then this might be the choice you want to take. They are 3 fast attack choices, so they might take away from your Tomb Blades and some other stuff like that, but 12 wounds, they're really tough to still move through. Like, you have to actually use real weapons to get rid of them. This also means that you don't really need to take a spider, because the spider's not going to be able to keep up with a 3-man, and it really isn't going to see his value out of his points. You're not going to be able to, unit gets hit, a unit's going to get destroyed. 3 Scarabs is not that hard to remove with a little bit of firepower, and you're not going to get the point of putting those guys back. So if you're running the 3-mans, you probably don't need the spider. I would recommend against it. Moving into that, where the spider does work well, is in 3 9-man squads. So 9-mans of Scarabs, these guys are the ones that can chew through other objective secured units onto points. They're the ones that can take out the last couple wounds on a certain unit or whatever that you might need to hit. They're ones that you can use the Strat to blow up on because you have extras in your back pocket ready to go. Recently, Triple C GT, I ran into a situation where I actually was able to hit a knight harder than I should have been able to on the first turn of the game, leaving the knight with only 4 wounds left. Using the stratagem, I was able to do 3 mortal wounds to it. Dice blessed me, and got it down to 1 wound. With the Scarabs in range on a charge, I decided to charge the Imperial Knight. Obviously, since I blew 1 Scarab up to do the mortal wounds to it, this meant that out of my 8-mans, I had 7 left that were able to swing through and hit. With the 6s to auto wound and the sheer volume of dice, I just had my fingers crossed that he was going to fail 1 save and take out the knight, and sure enough, he did. Was able to blow up an Imperial Knight, I believe one of his warlords, on turn 1, which was a huge swing for my army to be able to take such a big, beefy unit out with Scarabs. So the 9-mans can do the damage. You just have to be very precise when you're doing it. If you go and charge into a 10-man Terminator squad, and they're fully buffed defensively, your Scarabs are going to bounce off them. They're a strength 3, that's a toughness 4 unit. You're going to be wounding on 5s and 6s, and they're going to turn around, wound you on 3s, and while they might not wipe the squad out, you're not going to reanimate everything. And they're going to start chopping through piece by piece by piece. Units like the Scarab Occult Terminators that we're seeing for Thousand Suns can make pretty quick work of them in combat, amongst other just good units in combat. Raveners for Tyranids have volume of dice and can start chewing through those guys, and have a Tyranid warrior walk up from behind and give them some objectives secured on that objective to take it away from you. So be mindful that just because you have a bucket of dice doesn't mean that you can go breaking walls down with it. They can do some damage, they can do good cleanup, they can hold objectives by themselves, but they're not going to take over the world. The one stratagem, though, that they do have access to, because they're canoptic, that is called Enslaved Protectors. This is a nice little stratagem to keep in mind for when you're putting your guys onto an objective and taking it. A lot of players are compelled to move as close to the objective and cover the objective as best they can. Well, you need to be within 3 inches of it to take it. So by putting a Scarab just outside that 3 inches, this now makes your opponent compelled to have to push deeper into your army. One thing that I recommend to players that are using the Scarabs and the bigger bricks, even the smaller bricks too, is try to take the objective from your territory side, so that if your opponent wants to remove these guys or charge them to try to put them on the objective, now they're going to be closer to you. This means that you may not have to dedicate as far or lose units to take out and get the objective back. If they go and take a 3-man for 45 points out, and in turn you kill a 200 plus unit, that's a good trade. I'll take that trade any day. With these guys as well, stay on that back side of the objective. Stay closer to your home. 1, keeps you in range of the spider and keeps the spider protected. 2, make sure that you are able to still have the objective while not over dedicating yourself. And number 3, Enslaved Protectors. They move in. If they're within 3 of you, you can spend 1 CP and heroic intervention with a canoptic unit as if it was a character. Now they go and put some fire warriors on that point, trying to take it with 2 fire warriors to your 1 Scarab. Well, you spend a CP, heroically intervene, and you now charge them. You can, when you reanimate guys, you can put Scarabs out there just a little bit closer. You're not allowed to place reanimated models closer to the enemy during the charge step, during the declare charge and the charge phase when you're rolling the dice. You cannot increase how close you are to the unit when you're at that point. But every other phase, when you take this damage and can reanimate from shooting attacks, you can. So if your opponent tries to go at 4 inches away and then shoot at you to kill some scarabs and you reanimate one, put them up in front and go, well, I'm now 3 inches away from you, so I can heroic and pull all the scarabs on the objective, taking it back during your turn. With that being said, they're not going to take everything out in the entire world, but they still have that bucket of dice and can still clear things like that low armor and low toughness units. Going over to mine, personally, I run 2 8-mans. One reason I like to try to keep my no prisoner points at about 127, meaning that if my opponent has does not table me and I don't reanimate anything, the most they're going to score is 14 points. Probably going to reanimate some stuff, so that'll get increased. But then that means that my opponent must table me for 15. Tabling meaning killing every single, at least in this case, infantry model on the table to score enough points. That, if that happens, I probably lost the game already. The game's probably a loss. But in the circumstances where it's a good, really tight, close game, and I have units left and they have units left, then when we get to that point and we're calculating those no prisoner points, I might be able to stop them from the 15, stopping at a 13 or a 14, and that 1 or 2 points could be the difference between a win and a loss. One thing I want to recommend and throw out there for anyone who's trying to calculate no prisoner points for Necrons, the best way to do it is to just keep track of how many wounds actually do get reanimated. Not all the models over the course of the game. It gets very, very messy. But just every time you reanimate a scarab, you say, okay, you got 4 points. And then at the end of the game, you can go through and tally up all the models that are actually removed and dead, and then add the bonus points for the ones that were reanimated. That tends to be the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, you're going to need a dry erase board, some paper, pen, tally. It's going to get very complicated. And honestly, I feel bad for a lot of opponents that try to calculate it all the way through. It's really tough and really hard on them, and more math than I think anyone wants to be doing on the fly in a 5-round GT at the end of day one, 6-7 o'clock at night on a Saturday when they're ready to go to the local restaurant with their buddies. Back to it, I run two 8-man squats. It keeps my wound count at 127 for some of the armies, roughly, that I run, roughly around there. And I take a spider, I hide the spider behind the wall. My scarabs, I can't say they play late, I can't say they play early. They play depending on what I'm facing and what's going on. If I go first, I'll probably push one scarab into the center, hold the center, and have the other scarab hiding in the back. That scarab in the center gets shot with some stray shots, beat up, reduced down. They can then fall back. The second squad of scarabs can then jump forward, the full 8-man. My spider starts repairing that one. Then if this one lives and doesn't get destroyed and I'm repairing both of them, we go back to the spider can heal both units, and he's throwing scarabs out on both sides all game long. So that's the way I typically like to play them. It allows me to be aggressive with them and defensive with them. Late into the game, it's hard to remove some of the scarab bricks, and I can end up grabbing an objective and just holding it from some more powerful units just because they don't have the volume now of attacks because their squad's been reduced in size to remove the scarabs. And with them being objective secured in the dynasty, don't get me wrong, they're not objective secured normally because they're fast attack. It's because of the custom dynasty. But having that allows them to really hold it into the late game, really be a strong choice all around for multiple reasons. And I just love the models. As silly as it may be, they're one of my favorites. The spiders, I love them too. I'll probably do a video on them on a later date talking about some of the weird and unique things that they do that I've been questioning for a while of could this work? Could this do more? Is there more here that I'm not looking at? All in all, that's what I have noticed from Scarabs. That's what I've seen from them for a long time. They're great at playing the mission, playing the game. It's not all about killing. It's not all about destroying your opponent's units. Sometimes it's about playing the mission and being able to take those objectives and hold those objectives in what unique ways they can do them. Units like the Scarabs being able to um, access to a heroic intervention for extra move, being able to reanimate for extra moves, and being a great target for a 5-up invuln, and just all in all being a tar pit of wounds that can sit on an objective early game, late game, whenever you need it to. I personally have found them just absolutely to be gold. They're just the gold standard for what Necrons should and need to do. They do it all. So that in a nutshell is what I've seen from Scarabs. Please subscribe if you haven't already. If there's any other questions you have or something I didn't touch on and you want to know more about, please let me know. I'm going to be working on a video later today once I get my army set up, my next roster, showing not only what I'm running, which is going to be a 9 man Scarabs. I'm going to bring the big brick of Scarab and try and show all these different things I'm talking about. And I'll probably pull some other units that I haven't played in a while off the table. Still do the custom dynasty in that. Show you what the army looks like, and we'll get to there. Hopefully, get a game here with it soon and get these Scarabs on the table and show you guys what's up. Again, subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk again soon.